Close. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We have a different female. It feels weird that it's not your wife.
I know it's a little different. I offered her to be here today, but
she should have came. I don't know why she didn't.
For as much love as I have for some of the topics we're going to be talking about, she is not quite there on these particular topics, so she was afraid she wouldn't add a lot to the conversation, other than her beauty, of course, which that doesn't add to the conversation, but it makes me happier when she's here. And I know she's listening, so...
Good call.
Love you, baby.
Call. Yeah. Love you, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I asked Maggie, my beautiful wife.
Yeah.
Laura doesn't have a beautiful wife.
She could.
She
it's
will
21st
soon,
century.
She's getting... You're getting married, right?
Yes, to a beautiful woman.
To a beautiful woman named...
Kevin.
Destiny.
Call back to Vegas. That's a horrible inside joke that we can never talk about.
Nope.
Well, no, not at all.
No Vegas recap podcasts here today or ever, so...
We could absolutely do that. For those of you who don't know who Laura is, can you say where you work?
I do. No, it's actually a government secret.
It's super secret.
I can't divulge.
Wow.
No, I work at the Ocean Air Seafood Room downtown. It's a beautiful, beautiful restaurant.
Nice.
Fancy.
I've never been there.
Well, you should come. Why haven't you been?
Because it's a beautiful downtown
Yeah, I was
restaurant.
going to say, I've walked by and I was pretty sure I wasn't even allowed to be on the sidewalk, so...
No. It's a... What are you doing out there? I'm just walking by, sir.
You're not on the sidewalk list, boy. Keep moving.
Do you guys have somebody that sits out in front of the Ocean Air?
And shoos away undesirables? Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
All the high-end restaurants do.
We should ask around. I want to find out who
I
does.
want to apply to be that person. I want to be the vagrant shoer.
What would that title be?
I think it's vagrant
A
shoer.
vagrant shoer.
A vagrant shoer.
Probably something much more specific, like undesirable maintenance technician removal specialist, or I don't know.
Well, it's got to have a cool
something lengthy.
Like what do they call those things that have just the first letter? And then you just go by that
acronym.
An acronym. Yeah. I'm homeschooled. I don't know any of that stuff. So
You're lucky to know all the letters. I'm impressed. Letters form words.
I never.
He knows 23 of them.
That's not bad.
That's 23 of the letters.
It's not bad.
23 out of 38.
That ain't bad.
I'm feeling pretty good. So
The Q is usually silent, so you don't need to know that one anyways.
Oh,
so,
good.
Yeah, you're doing okay.
That's quite nice.
Yes.
All right. So tonight we are talking. Which one should we start with?
I don't know.
We'll allow our guest, who's chugging a beer from Dirty.
Well, the beer is called Dirty Helen, but it's from Barley Island.
Oh,
Have any of these people paid us royalties?
It's a local brew.
Then it's generic beer
We can
time.
edit that part out.
it's just. Oh, I don't want to get sued. All right, your choice, Laura. What are we going to be talking about?
It's what I came for. I think we're gonna lead with Mel.
Ah, all right. So today's episode is going to be dedicated to the great Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson is not who we're talking about. We're talking about Mel Brooks.
But I had a whole diatribe about Passion of the Christ ready. I've wasted my whole weekend now.
Mel Brooks. I actually was just listening to Mel Brooks' podcast that he did with Chris Hardwick.
Nice.
No, I just listened to that too on the Nerdist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you really?
I did.
It was actually pretty good.
Oh, I hardcore researched for this.
No, seriously?
Okay, maybe not hardcore.
Yeah, there you go. That's kind of our thing. Is
moderate core research. No,
and you do more research than I do.
But even that is it's not hardcore. It's like it's like minor. Right. I didn't bring any props. I didn't bring anything with me today, as I've done sometimes in the past.
Yes.
So, but no, yeah, really, I just remember the movies that I watched growing up, and yep, research done.
Well, how do we want to start this? I vote. Okay, on the count of three, I'll go 1, 2, 3. Everybody say their favorite Mel Brooks movie.
Okay.
All right.
That's fine.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Blazing
Saddles.
Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newman. Wait, he didn't do that movie, did he?
No.
Oh.
That's Mel Gibson. You're way off.
That's not even Mel Gibson.
Let's save that for next week.
All right. I said the wrong one, everybody. But you said Spaceballs.
Yeah.
I'm very aware that you like Spaceballs. And what did you say?
I said Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles.
It's a tough choice. It's kind of a Sophie's choice, but I'm going to go with Blazing Saddles.
It's a solid choice. I have to go with History of the World Part 1.
Makes sense.
That's fair.
I'm a huge fan of Spaceballs. I'm a huge fan of Blazing Saddles. There's just so many that are good.
There are. We could talk indefinitely about this. I'm very upset because I have a lot of his movies individually. I have Spaceballs and I have the producers and all that jazz. But my family every year for Christmas does
You have Spaceballs mixed with all that jazz. That's an amazing musical.
It's really good stuff. Spaceballs needs to be his next musical. Sidebar over. At my family's Christmas, we do a Yankee swap, and one of the things in there was the Mel Brooks collection, and I'm very upset that I didn't get it. So
was that a white elephant
livid.
gift exchange?
Yes.
And somebody brought that
yeah,
to him?
that's a brilliant gift.
Yeah.
I have that. It's sitting there, and I've never watched it.
Oh, my.
I bought it. It was on Amazon's lightning deal of the day.
Yeah.
I think I paid $11 for it.
Wow.
And it was like their Blu-ray set of his top 8 movies or whatnot. I meant to watch them in prep for this, but then I remembered that I don't do any prep work at all. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be doing that now.
That's fair. No, I remember that when that came out, it was like $89, and I almost bought it on the spot, like brand new for full price. So $11 would be fancy.
Yeah. He actually makes a joke about it on the Nerdist, how like it starts out at $89, and like a couple months later they knock off $10, and then by 6 months later it's in a gas station for $1.89.
Walmart's bin, yeah, $5 bin.
Then I overpaid apparently. If I would have waited just a few more months, I would have gotten it.
I'll pay you $5 for it right now.
$1.89.
That is a no.
Come on.
No. Come on, man. We should just have like a Mel Brooks summer, where every other week we just set up a big old projector and screen, and between the two of us we've got enough audio equipment to take care of all that.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Sorry, I thought maybe it moved. I'm kind of craning my neck. I'm a little on the short side.
Oh, well, scoot over there. You can scoot over there, and then you can move that around.
What is the chair?
We're probably.
It is office equipment. So.
Laura's like 3 feet tall. She's barely able to reach the microphone. You can scoot the microphone closer to you.
I think I'm good with proximity.
All right. So Mel Brooks' favorite movies that we've got going around. I don't even know where to start with Mel Brooks. He's the reason I want to be a Jew.
That's fair.
That dude. There's something like when I was growing up, there was one guy that I couldn't fathom being dead in the world, and now he's dead. Is Robin Williams. Mm-hmm. I just could not wrap my mind around the fact that one day he's not going to be here.
Yeah.
And now that he's gone, Mel's kind of that next person. I'm like, there's so much freaking amazingness that has come from this guy that I just can't. I can't not. I have to leave. I have to leave for the next 3 hours and think about
That's fair.
Mel not being around.
Think about your bigger place in the universe.
Yeah. So anyway, there's nothing else. I'm gonna be very honest. I'm kind of excited to hear you talk about his son, because I know you've got some stuff that you want to talk about. But before we get into the deep stuff, we've got some shout outs that we're gonna read. This is hot off the presses.
It is hot off the presses. I can see the little dots from the dot matrix printer. They still forming here. I
don't know how should we do this. Okay, so we've got 4 groups here. Earlier today, I just threw out something on Facebook and said, hey, if you want a shout out for your podcast, just throw your name and your podcast down, and we will say it on the episode. So maybe we'll do half of these.
Okay.
How does that sound? So we got 4 different chunks, and we'll start at the very top, and we'll do the first section and the last section. We'll just do it like that. Okay. And we'll just go around round table style. And who wants to go first? Tony, you can go first.
Okay. So we're giving a shout out today. Go listen to the Friendship Podcast with Chris Johnson. I don't know what it's about, but it sounds
friendly.
It sounds fabulous. Like I feel like you couldn't listen to it and be upset afterwards. Mm-hmm. So, Friendship Podcast, Chris Johnson.
Nice.
And this shout out is dedicated to Loaded Dice Radio with David Temrick. Hopefully he'll send you away with some some skills to pay the bills when you go to Vegas next.
Skills to pay the bills.
I
That's
like
a
this.
podcast
We're just
right now.
yeah. I like how we're just assuming we know what these are about.
I think that's my favorite part.
Probably has
big
nothing
fan
to
of
do
that.
with gambling.
No, it has absolutely nothing. I want to give a shout out to the Lost Skills podcast with Jeff Radtke. Lost Skills is basically it's a podcast. I'm going to really enjoy making up fictional things right now. Lost Skills podcast is things that you used to do as an infant, but you no longer remember how to do it. So check it out. The Lost Skills
Like
podcast.
latching.
Yeah.
The lost art of the lost skills.
All right.
I like it. I'm going to send a personal shout out to my good friend, longtime associate, and gentleman who I know personally because I know this is his name on his birth certificate because I know him really well, Martin Loofah King.
Oh, yeah.
Martin Loofah King. His parents were big in the sponge world.
Mm-hmm.
They were the originators. Martin Loofah King has a lengthy one here. The single simulcast.
I think it's different.
He has a lot of them. Okay,
Yeah.
Single simulcasts are for all the single folks who listen to podcasters. It's kind of like the podcast version of ChristianMingle.com. The single simulcast. This one, I say this all in good fun. This one might be a misprint. What's the?
No, that's how it's supposed to be written.
The Dr. 3 a.m. team.
Maybe it's the Dream Team.
No, it says Dr. 3 a.m.
Oh,
Dr.
okay.
3 a.m. This is for doctors who work the overnight shift who need something to do. The Dr. 3 a.m. team. Probably the Dream Team,
Yeah,
yes.
it's probably Dream Team.
Sin and Solace, which I have to imagine is probably about something religious maybe, or maybe that's another Vegas podcast.
Yeah.
Sin and Solace, I'm going to think. And the last podcast on here is 20 minutes, which I'm going to assume is you learn how to do things college level in 20 minutes. So like world geography, 20 minutes. Oceanography, 20 minutes. Listen to one podcast, learn it all. Martin Loofah King, my guy.
All right, Laura, you got the next one.
Good luck.
I'm not going to go where you think I am with this. This one's going out to Adam Poncharoensub, and he is with Dropping Loads, which is a podcast dedicated to strategies for going to the laundromat.
Oh, yeah. I've always wondered if anything was going to come out about that. Another shout out for Christopher Chavez. His podcast is the Back Issue Comic Book Podcast. I'm going to be very blunt. It's a very direct name, and there's not a lot that you can go off of other than it's about comic books and probably back issues. So if you like nerd stuff in regards to superheroes and whatnot, check out Christopher's podcast.
All right, I've got Quills Rodriguez, who has got a pretty sweet name. Quills Rodriguez. Jason Quills Rodriguez. I added the Jason for dramatic effect for you Guardians of the Galaxy fans. He hosts the Talking Geek podcast, which, if you don't know it, the geek is actually a genus of hedgehog that lives in the remote areas of New Zealand, and some of them have actually started to learn words. It's very interesting. So listen to the Talking Geek podcast and hear all about those things and their magical way of communicating with us.
I think I read about that in National Geographic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Jeez.
Next shout out goes to Paul Dube with The Sports Den. It's actually a subterranean arena where they host fights to the death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is there any other kind?
Yeah, no. I mean, nothing worth
You could have just
watching.
said fights. It's redundant.
Yeah. Mary Catherine Johnson with the Parent Entrepreneur Power Podcast. That's PEP. The Parent Entrepreneur Podcast is how to basically take a parent of a child and remove them from that role and extract any type of, fictional energy or aura from them and use it for your own powering purposes.
Sure.
It's a very dark podcast.
It sounds phenomenal. I heard that it's recently been optioned for a movie, which I cannot wait for.
Yep. I think they're just calling it PEP.
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Makes
A little
perfect
misleading,
sense. So
but
Yeah, well, you know.
I'm looking forward to it. So I'm gonna say hey to my boy Vernon Ross. I got Vernon Ross. He's hosts Social Strategy. This one's kind of a niche podcast. This is for albino shut-ins only. Albino shut-ins who need to learn how to interact with the world, mostly at night, obviously due to melanoma concerns and things like that. But you need some good strategy for that. It's a very, very focused podcast, but a lot of great information there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't laugh at them.
And I'm sorry. It's
How dare you.
I mean, it's just I'm laughing because it's such an appropriate name.
Mm-hmm.
Laura, wrap us up. Who's
All
our
right.
final shout out going to?
Final shout out is to Henry Barnhart with the No Town Saints. This is a down and out sports team named the Saints, high school basketball team, and they, this is basically just a rags to riches story where he follows them across. The whole season, their whole championship season, where they rise to glory, and I won't tell you what happens in the final game, but
So
it's
like
really
it's
incredible.
a combination of Serial, and almost it's like Serial meets the Sports Den.
Absolutely,
I see.
absolutely.
Sweet.
That's outstanding. So that was all fake. I want to make sure that everybody's very aware of that.
Why would you ruin the magic?
Because all these kind people gave us their names. So
And we ruined them.
so if you're listening, in all honesty, go check out these podcasts.
Yes.
There's some good stuff, and we want to give a big thank you to everybody: Chris, David, Jeff, Martin, Adam, Christopher, Quills, Paul, Mary Catherine, Vernon, and Henry for allowing us to just give you quick shout outs. Hopefully you guys got a little laughter out of it. Once again, they are not based on what we said.
And if they are moving forward, there's some copyright issues about to go
Yes.
down.
Yes. If somebody decides to make a podcast about albinos and that's going to be on the Amalgam Network, and we're just calling it right now.
Absolutely. The Dr. 3 a.m. team is mine.
Dr. 3 a.m.
That is mine. Although when you were talking about cereal, I was struck with a genius idea. We got to make a podcast
Called Cereal
called
with a C?
Cereal. Yes,
Yes,
and just
okay.
talk about cereal.
So-
Why would we not do that?
So life.
How is
Let's
that
just
not
break
started?
This down. Oh no, that's gonna happen. We should just call an episode called Cereal.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Well, we got that under works.
Done.
So now we've taken up a long time talking about fictional podcasts
And
that
words.
are real.
Fictional.
So
words.
fictional. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
close enough.
it's all right. Whatever. Back to Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is who we're going to be focusing on. So who wants to kind of lead things off?
Should we talk? I don't care who leads things off, but I know we all kind of picked our favorite movie, and since we clearly have no idea necessarily where we're going directional wise with this podcast, maybe we take the opportunity for each of us to go around and defend why the movie we shouted out loud is definitively the best Mel Brooks movie.
Like
Without a
like
doubt.
court scene type stuff?
Yeah.
All right.
Your Honor.
Mr. Tony, why do you think...
That does not make sense.
All right. Well, then you start.
Oh, okay.
You're up. So,
All right.
Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Why definitively is that the greatest Mel Brooks movie that has ever been created?
All right. Well, there's a lot of reasons why, for me personally, it's the best. Like, I've been watching it for a long time. This was my best friend Jerry and I growing up. This was our movie when we would hang out after school and we would get together, do things on the weekends. I've probably seen, I may very well have seen Spaceballs more than any other movie, all other movies combined. Like, if I've long said that if you had 2 hours free, I could give you a one-man show, word for word, action for action of the movie. We talked about this briefly.
Go.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. I think you and I talked briefly about this on a previous, I can't tell if it was on a podcast or if we were just chatting IRL in real life, for those of you who don't know acronyms, Jared Wade. But if I can't remember where we were talking about it. But
L.O. Loud. Yeah. I got
Oh.
that. L.O. Loud.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think it's
KJ.
pronounced Lol Loud.
Whatever.
All right.
Loud.
KJ.
Whatever.
KJ.
I'll make a GIF out of that.
All right. Good luck.
It's Jeff.
It's GIF.
Jife. Jife.
Okay. Spaceballs.
Anyways, yes. Yeah, I can't remember where you and I were talking about this, but I'm pretty sure that at one point I was the proudest owner, the world's largest.
It was at your man cave.
Yeah, that's right. I'm the proud owner of the world's largest Spaceballs memorabilia collection. Yeah, I can't remember exactly where we talked about that. But all of that is irrelevant because the movie itself, in addition to being wildly funny, the reason that it is the best Mel Brooks movie of all time is because it is the only Mel Brooks movie. And I know a lot of other Mel Brooks movies have spawned Broadway musicals and things like that, and that's all cool. You know, Broadway musicals are a dime a dozen, yada, yada, yada. Is the only Mel Brooks movie to know. Spider-Man had a Broadway musical. Anybody can have a Broadway musical. Spaceballs is the only Mel Brooks movie to spawn an animated series. Now, granted, it was not the best series in the world, but I don't see any other. I didn't see Silent Movie, the series. I didn't see, anything else along those lines. So, animated series is instant gratification for your claim to fame as #1 all-time best happy fun movie.
Best happy fun movie.
I'll rest my case, Your Honor.
All right, so you're leading with that. All right, Blazing Saddles. You want to take it, Laura?
Absolutely. I noticed that Tony picked his favorite in part because it was a childhood favorite, one that he'd grown up with, and I, was partially tempted to pick Robin Hood Men in Tights for that reason, because that was the first movie of his that I'd seen, and I know you also had a love affair with that movie, Jared, but at the end of the day, I got to say The Blazing Saddles is probably his best movie, and also interesting to know, I feel bad for picking this movie because I think it's the only one he didn't write.
True.
He had a writing credit, but he didn't write the original script. He just revamped it, did some of the dialogue.
If you listen to Nerdist, he talks more about
that. He does
that.
talk about that. That being said...
Thanks for adding that random noise, Tony.
I said, aha.
Oh, okay.
Blurp.
But I think Blazing Saddles is brilliant for a couple of reasons. One, and again, another thing they talk about in the podcast or on Nerdist, but this is something that I knew before, was that they didn't think that the movie was going to get made, and so they just wrote whatever they thought they could get away with or whatever they thought was funny, just basically to entertain themselves. And then it did end up getting made, and I think that's part of the reason that it was such a brilliant movie, is because they weren't holding back, they weren't censoring themselves, they weren't thinking, oh, what can we do, what can't we do? They were just doing what made them laugh, what they thought was funny.
I've noticed that some of the best stuff that's ever been created was written with that mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it was only written, and it's almost like this podcast. It's only really being done to amuse the people that are on it and maybe the people that are listening to it. And that's it. Yeah. That's the only focus. Martin Short. Martin Short and, his name is escaping me. He's in Spaceballs. Rick Moranis. Yes, Rick Moranis. Both said the same exact thing about SCTV, that when they made SCTV, they just made it literally with the intention of making it to laugh at what they're doing. Same thing with Monty Python. Yeah. Which we'll come to on another episode.
For another day.
On the next exciting Dr. 3 a.m.
Good call. I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, just one last point, but I just also think it was just so revolutionary looking back for its time. I mean, that's easy to say, but just... if you think about all the things that they were doing in that movie that didn't become mainstays of comedy for another 20 or 30 years, I love the scene where they're having the big brawl and they just bust through the studio wall and they stumble upon a musical number and they all get in this huge fight. And when you think about it, stuff like that is so meta, and you don't see that kind of comedy for another 20, 25 years. Now all of a sudden, Community obviously does the whole meta thing to the nth degree, but
Dom DeLuise.
Oh, Dom DeLuise.
He was in Spaceballs. Point for Tony.
Oh, my gosh. We might have to go a second round here to talk about why our movies are the best. I'm actually going to start at the end of A History of the World Part 1, which is, it's
Jews in Space?
It's
That's Part 2.
Hitler on Ice. That's what it is. The fact that... When they were creating movies back then, regardless, they didn't have the mentality of this is going to make a sequel or it's going to make a trilogy or whatever else. It was we're going to make this one movie and then we're done with it. Yeah. And I maybe it's just me, but I've always thought that the greatest part of that movie was when they said in part 2, because they never intended to make a part 2, but also it's the history of the world, so there really can't be a part 2 until
there's more history.
It's over. Right. So it's brilliant because it works on so many different levels. Even the title. So going from the beginning, History of the World Part 1, all the way to the very, very end, and they even film that extra stuff of Jews in space and Hitler on ice and whatever else. It's just it felt like that was more of a like a buddy comedy movie. Like, it was just, you could tell that Mel was just hey, let's just sit down and write something, and we're just going to pull out a decade, and we got to talk about Christ at some point in time. So okay, well, let's have him being written up, or having Da Vinci in their painting and whatnot. Oh my God!
What a great skit!
It's just ridiculous. But anyways, the creativity of simply the title is the big one for me. I don't even touch the movie yet, and I've already beaten you, Tony. So it's just how it goes. That's how it goes. And then whenever I hear the word Judea, I always break out into song. That would be point 2.
That's fair.
Because if you don't break out into song just by hearing Judea, then you've got an issue and a problem. All right, Tony, you have a point 2 for your Spaceballs?
Sure. Well, the good news is that everything that you guys have said that you like about your movies...
Stupid. Yeah, you gotta go ahead. Everything you said works for mine, too.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
Thanks. Everything you said works for mine, too.
Yeah.
Not only does it work for mine, I took everything that you guys have and smooshed it together, and it's all in one movie. The meta thing, like they do in Blazing Saddles, they when they're having their lightsaber, or their Schwartz lightsaber scene, they slash a member of Spaceballs, the movie crew. He accidentally gets smashed, and they watch. He did it. Not only that, they watch their own movie. They go to Spaceballs, the video store, and get Spaceballs, the cassette tape, and watch their movie to see what's going to happen next. Very, very meta. Mm-hmm. Yours, with the title, I do love the title with part 1, but come on. Balls? Right in the title? I know everybody giggles at Spaceballs. And it's very, these guys do the same thing. It's very kind of that. It's got that kind of existential meta comedy to it, obviously, with the self-referential. It has a great buddy feel as well, with Lone Star and Barf and all, and it's just this, I think, at the time when this movie came out, it was far enough removed from when Star Wars first started coming out by almost a decade, but to still go back and make fun of or, lampoon movies that have been out for a long time, but really that no one else was kind of, Star Wars at that point, the Star Wars franchise was this, revered thing that had come a long way in a decade, and everybody's like, oh, Star Wars is serious business. And to just say, you know what, screw that, we're going to have some fun with it, it's something that no one else would do. That's kind of the breaking barriers of, a lot of people can make fun of history and make fun of the Old West because nobody's around to defend it. To make fun of Lucas while Lucas is relatively in your backyard and he could probably call you up and say something about it, that takes some Spaceballs, my friend.
Oh, wow. It's like you prepped that.
This is my book. Closed. Case closed.
Closed? Case closed?
I'll rest my case, Your Honor.
Is that your tag? It is closed. Case closed. And then you remove your sunglasses. Yeah!
Absolutely.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Laura, good luck following that up with Blazing Saddles. What's your case closed?
Well, I'm gonna piggyback off of his final point to kind of transition into mine. Mm-hmm. You say he was making fun of George Lucas, but I think all the parodies are just, it's the whole imitation is the sincerest form of flattery thing. Yeah, of course he was making fun of it a little bit, but I think it was paying homage as much as anything. And Spaceballs was obviously paying homage to Star Wars and the sci-fi genre in general. But I love how he goes through and kind of hits all the genres. And, obviously with Young Frankenstein, he was doing that old black and white sort of early horror mystery genre. And with Blazing Saddles, obviously he's kind of lampooning the whole Western genre. But yeah, I just love the way that he's kind of able to make fun of something and show his love and reverence for it at the same time.
Do you think that he doesn't care
about
like just anything? Like I mean, now I think he's to the age and he's to the point in his life where he's just like, he's an old Jew and he's like, whatever, whatever happens, and I'm fine with it. But when he was younger, in his 40s or whatnot, because I mean, he started way back in the, what is it, million-year-old?
A 2,000-year-old man?
Yeah, 2,000-year-old man. I mean, he's been around for a long time with Carl. Yeah. Carl Reiner, good close personal friend of mine.
Well, he was a writer. He was a writer on Sid Caesar show. That's almost a.
That's a podcast.
Yeah, right. But he was a writer, and that's there's a movie. This is another sidebar. This is not a Mel Brooks written movie. I think he might have had a hand in it, called My Favorite Year. That was based loosely on his life and what he did. I only know a lot about this is because This was, again, transformed into a Broadway musical, like so many others. And that was actually the first, when I moved to Indianapolis, that was the first local community show that I did. I played the Mel Brooks character in My Favorite Year of the Musical here in town at Footline. So,
wow.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Subtle brag.
Yeah, subtle.
Hashtag subtle brag, hashtag case closed, case ghost.
Oh my gosh. You know, the more that I think about history of the world, the more I like it. But there's no. It felt like one solid story arc. Like when I think of Spaceballs or when I think of Blazing Saddles, I think of one-liners. There's so many one-liners in those two movies. I can't think of a whole bunch of one-liners in history of the world because I think that it's just one giant congealed movie that's just pure funny. So that would be my trump card to you guys. That
is not as memorable as ours.
That
Good
is
job.
not as many one-liners.
Nailed it.
Not as many one-liners. Don't you even. Point number two is there's more Dom DeLuise. I get more Dom DeLuise than you do.
Dom DeLuise.
You don't get that much Dom DeLuise.
Some.
You barely get any Dom.
He was covered in pizza.
It doesn't matter.
Come on, man.
Nope. That's not what it is. No, you didn't even know it was Dom DeLuise.
I would argue that my Dom DeLuise is more quality than quantity.
Mine is chocked full of quality. I have to say that right now. Dom DeLuise in History of the... Yeah. It's good to be the king. So, and I'm pretty sure that's where it came from, too.
Was that the first movie they say it's good to be the king?
I actually have no idea.
I love that he has those running jokes throughout all those movies, though.
Like Dom DeLuise.
Mm-hmm. Or the walk this way thing. He does that more than once.
It's true. That's very, very true. Yes. All right. What about a runner-up? From the three movies that we didn't talk about, what's a runner-up that you have?
I would probably go with The Producers. Just because,
really,
yeah,
yes.
because not only for the content of the first movie, because it was hilarious, but what it has spawned since then. I think it's probably the only Mel Brooks movie to spawn another movie of the same name based on something else, because it became a Broadway musical, and then they made the movie based on the musical. So there's two movies called The Producers, both Mel Brooks related, but two very different movies. Similar content, but very different movies from very different times.
The characters are a little different. They have different messages. They, leave whole scenes out. It's, I kind of, the thing I like about it, and I've got...
my name's Tony. I make a valid point. Look at me.
I'm going to pick...
We're through here.
I'm going to pick
I'll
different...
be in the car.
We're not driving together. I don't know why you're waiting in the passenger seat in my car.
We locked the door.
Take me to McDonald's. It's my prize.
I'm going to pick a different backup movie to defend, but I was going to pick The Producers, and what were we just talking about? We got on such a rip. I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Your backup movie.
No, the thing that he just finished saying.
McDonald's.
Yeah.
Before that.
So Mel Brooks owning McDonald's.
No, okay, I remember.
Mick Brooks.
Mick Brooks. Oh my God. No, one of the things I really love about The Producers is that it was his first commercially successful. Well, I don't know. His first movie might have been successful in its time, but it's the first movie he made that really lasted, really stuck with people. And then he came back to it late in his career, 40 years later, and kind of revamppt it. And I love that you get to see these two different points in his life. He's telling the same story.
He kind of reinvented himself.
It's really cool.
Interesting.
And yet you poo-poo.
I do.
No one would have thought a Mel Brooks movie on Broadway. Okay, good luck. And then it destroyed people out there. It was awesome.
No, I do like The Producers. I like The Producers a lot. The musical version.
Yep.
I had a very difficult time with the original version.
Really?
Yeah. I was all about the Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick version. I could watch that every day of the week. I love it.
Yeah,
whole thing. That is one of my... That has my most favorite scene out of any Mel Brooks movie. It does.
Is it Springtime for Hitler?
No, it's not Springtime for Hitler. It is when the director, his gay companion,
Roger Elizabeth Liberty.
Yeah, his buddy opens the door and he goes, "Yes."
Oh, yes. Drawn out. That's Roger Bart.
Yes, Roger Bart. Yes. That I could watch that 1,000 times a day, and I will laugh just as hard every single time. And I think it's the extra little at the end.
Just caps it.
Yeah, because that I think that affirmed that to me that Mel, there is no limitations.
Sure.
There is no spot where Mel's like, nope, I'm not going to go there because I'm afraid of offending somebody or whatever else.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, we're going to go as far and do as whatever we want. And
Well, and the types of jokes he makes too are they just run the range from that. It's clearly funny because the guy's going for like 45 seconds, and that is clearly funny, to the most minor joke that like you have to pay attention, like the Roger Elizabeth Debris thing, because earlier they said that Hitler's middle name was Elizabeth, and they're like, who has middle name of Elizabeth? And then you reference it 25 minutes later. It's like it felt like a throwaway line, but then it comes back, and you're like, okay. So I mean, he
Roger Elizabeth Debris,
and the look they give each other,
name's
like, really?
Elizabeth?
Yeah. It's just one of those things where the amount of jokes he makes, I think, is just what makes Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Mel Brooks.
All right, producers.
Yeah.
That's a good play card. That's a good one.
Not too shabby.
Are you sticking with the producers as well?
I feel like I should pick something different just so we can cover everything. And I did say earlier that out of sheer nostalgia that I needed to, that I felt like I should pick Robin Hood Men in Tights. So we're going to talk about Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Stole it.
Crap. Yeah. Now I gotta.
Oh, did I take yours? No, I can.
No. It doesn't matter. Nobody likes me anyway.
Shut up.
I'll just
I didn't want to talk about that anyway.
Yeah, it's a stupid movie.
It's just dumb.
Can't fire 6 bows or arrows at one time.
Stupid Patrick Stewart in it.
No, it will always have a special place in my heart because it came out, when I was at a formidable age for comedy. And
93?
Yeah.
How old were you in 93?
How old are you?
I'm 32.
Yeah, okay, you were not that far apart. I was like 8.
Oh. Wow, that's an advanced
8
8-year-old.
93? God, I was a sophomore in high school.
Well, I didn't get a...
We're over here talking about our single digits, and Tony's just
I was babysitting while watching that. My first date, man.
Don't tell your mom I put this on.
All right, Robin Hood, go with it.
Yeah, no, formidable age, as I was saying. And, it was my first introduction to Mel Brooks, and it was just... a lot of other movies that came out around that time. I've noticed a distinct pattern. Like my favorite, to me, the golden age of comedy was the 70s and the 80s, and the stuff that has come since then. It's not all bad. I have some favorites, but nothing compares. And I say that, and then Robin Hood Men in Tights actually came out in '93, but it was made by a guy who made his career in the 70s and 80s, and a lot of the other stuff that was coming out at the time, it didn't do it for me, and then I saw this, and it kind of didn't
do it. Isn't that a Mel Brooks movie?
Yeah, Spaceballs, as a matter of fact.
There you go.
Does he say that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I
Lone Star.
totally subconscious. I didn't.
She doesn't look Jewish. Another Jew joke. It was a very parallel between.
It was huge.
She doesn't look Jewish, and yes, yeah.
So yeah,
Jewish. She doesn't look Jewish.
Funny. She doesn't look, that's all we need.
John Candy. That's the big one for Spaceballs was John Candy.
You're right.
Gosh. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I feel like we're just going to get depressed again. Could you keep talking about more comedians that have passed away?
All right. This is how we end every episode. As we talk about somebody that
we cry ourselves off the air.
Put you.
See you next time.
Who can say? No. So yeah, I guess that's would be my first argument point for Robin Hood Men in Tights, is that it brought my generation introduced them to Mel Brooks, I guess. And his style, and that you can still see, even though I wouldn't argue that it's his best movie, you can still see that glimmer, where he's still carrying those jokes through. It's good to be the king, all that stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. Yeah,
I would back that up with the big thing for me was that was his, and it kind of goes along with what you were saying. It was, aside from Mel being in it, it was one of the few movies that had a brand new cast. And it still had that Brooks feel of, all right, this is going to be really, really good. Yeah. We've got Carrie Ewells that most people, Princess Bride kind of brought him out there, but that, for me, that's what brought me to Carrie was that. And then, of course, Sir Patrick Stewart.
Rise, Sir Robin.
Yeah. That, I think I quote that one more than any other movie, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. See that?
You do a mean Men in Tights. You want to sing us a line?
Dude, no, I do not. I do not, because we'd have to pay royalties. So it's not that I don't want to.
Well, can you sing up to like 4 notes without?
No. For podcasts, it's actually if you think the hymn, they won't. It's weird.
We're already pushing it.
I just heard a knock on the door.
The sheer fact that we said Mel this many times, I owe them $17,000. It adds up quickly. So, all right. So my secondary, and I don't want to go too mainstream, but I don't think we can not talk about Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That's one of those. That's a you have to watch it at least once a year at Halloween.
Sure.
Like that's just that. You gotta watch that. You gotta watch that movie. Everything about that. I also like Gene a lot, and I know Gene was more of the writer behind the scenes for you. I mean, and it felt like Gene the entire time as well. But
I actually styled my hair tonight in honor of
Gene
Wilder.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But no, our Young Frankenstein. What is that scene with Igor and his head's on the shelf? I don't know what it is about. Who's that actor? You know actors' names better than I do.
The one that played Igor? Wasn't that Marty Feldman?
Yes, Marty Feldman. Thank you very much.
The gentleman that you referenced as one of your best D-list actors just a few episodes ago, and now you can't remember that he's in the movie?
Hey, it's because
Tune in next time to the Tony Alone Show.
Tone Alone.
The picture is me like Macaulay Culkin. Oh.
I couldn't remember his name because we've been talking about all these other great actors. You gotta give me. I
give you nothing.
You gotta help. You gotta help a brother out.
I did by publicly embarrassing you. Now you'll never make that mistake again.
It's true.
You're like, Marty Feldman. Give me the Young Frankenstein.
Yes. So yes, Young Frankenstein, Igor, Jerry Feldman, great actor. Who nobody?
Did you say Jerry
Marty Feldman?
Jerry.
I didn't want to embarrass you further. I was just going to let it slide.
I lined it up for you, and he's over there nodding. Yep, Jerry.
Him and Al Gibson were real good in it.
Yeah, they did a really good job writing those talking pictures.
And then Mel Brooks quit and founded Brookstone Stores.
He's a genius. If he did
really
that.
good.
No, Young Frankenstein. The big thing for me for Young Frankenstein was that it almost felt. It felt throwaway, but yet it worked. For me, it just it wasn't an original idea. Like out of all the movies that we've talked about, it wasn't something that like History of the World or even Spaceballs. I mean, Spaceballs was a parody, but they took a lot of liberties with it. For Young Frankenstein, the only reason in my mind that it's at the 6th position is that it's simply he literally took Frankenstein and said, we're going to say his name differently, and we're going to add some comedy into it, and that's it. So for me, I'm like, that just feels cheating to me. But the jokes that worked inside of it worked really, really well. But it just felt like when that came out, he was kind of still on his high about, I'm creating hit after hit after hit after hit. Sure. And Gene probably came to him and, hey, I got this idea about Frankenstein, but it's not pronounced Frankenstein.
Right.
So,
well, at surface value, you would think when you see the Young Frankenstein in the black and white, and based on his other stuff, you would think, this is going to be a parody or a lampoon of the horror genre in general. But yeah, they don't really touch on that a whole lot in the original movie. I know I believe they did. It's been a while since I've seen the musical version of Young Frankenstein, but I believe they did some brief expansion and included a few other tropes in there. But on the whole, it felt like it should have been a genre movie, and it really was just kind of a single movie.
Yeah, that's why it felt throwaway to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you feel, Laura?
No, I would actually heavily agree with you guys, and it's
I'm glad that she's not lightly agreeing with us.
Heavily
agreeing.
Of all the parodies that he does, it's and again, to reference the Nerdist Podcast, if I haven't
said it 13 times.
If I haven't given them enough props yet. They talk about that where he of all the parodies that he's done, it's the closest to the original, that he tried to stay the truest, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I think he was saying it was partly because he respected that genre the most.
That old-timey
exactly.
horror flick. Yeah.
He even talks about how Gene had to kind of pull him into the make him lean into the comedy a little bit more because he wanted to keep it more on the serious side, and he had to talk him into putting on the Ritz because Mel was worried that was going to be too silly.
Yeah.
And then he realized after editing that it was the funniest part of the movie. But
if you ever get a chance to watch any interviews with Gene, he is the polar opposite of what you think he would be.
Yeah.
Especially like if you watch Willy Wonka and then you go watch him in an interview format. Super introvert, just, hey, I'm not really even an actor. I'm just kind of doing my thing. I was like, what? Come on, man. All right, you guys have anything to wrap up today's episode? Tony, you gonna be performing anywhere?
Perform every day. What you talking about? I'm on right now.
All day.
No, other than Mel Brooks, not only amazing comedic mind, he left behind a great legacy not only in his films but also in his family. Not only I'll touch briefly on it. Obviously, his lovely wife Anne Bancroft went before him, but his son Max Brooks is near and dear to my heart because he has taken his father's wit, but instead of being a little more, I don't want to call it slapstick, but instead of being a little more in your face with the comedy, it's much more subtle. He is best known for writing, in my opinion, one of the best, probably the best that I've ever read so far, the zombie book of all time, World War Z, which was turned into a movie by Brad Pitt and his company that's completely not like the book, FYI. So go read the book. It's night and day different. The movie was not bad. The movie was okay. The book is so much better.
Yeah, the book,
and it's so much different.
The book is basically about anybody with a last name that starts with Z, they get into a war.
Right.
And they just kill off each other.
Pretty much just going through the phone book, right? Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yep. But no.
Zuckerberg.
Oh, well, he's got some time because it's ZU.
Right.
So
he's got to get through the other vowels first.
Yep.
But yeah, no, it's he's a wonderful talent too. Max actually wrote for a few years for Saturday Night Live before he kind of launched in, and now he's kind of turned his eyes to the comics. He's writing a lot of G.I. Joe and things like that. But yeah, he's left behind a lot.
Yeah.
Not only in movie celluloid form, but
in genetics.
Yes.
Well done, Brooks. Way to impregnate your wife.
Kudos.
Laura, you got anything you want to leave?
Yeah, absolutely. No, if I had to speak to what I thought Mel Brooks' legacy would be, besides his progeny? Am I saying that right?
Progeny.
Progeny? I thought so. Okay.
Prodigy.
He was also a founding
Besides
member of the Prodigy, the English punk rock band. The Prodigy.
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
He was the leading man. He was the vocalist.
Firestarter.
The leading Jew.
No, but if I had to speculate on his legacy, I would just think it would be what he did for, I guess this is going to sound really high-minded, but go with me. Like civics and, just the progressive movement, that was going on in the time that he was creating. And I love that all of his movies, he's got African-American actors at the forefront. He's got a lot of the best female comedians of their time, and when you're not seeing them in a lot of other movies. And they're not just, there to be arm candy or be the butt of the joke. Like, they're actually in on the comedy. Madeline Kahn, Cloris Leachman, just come on. Come on.
Yeah.
So, if I could give him any props, it was that... I think comedy is one of I think comedy is one of the best and more subtle ways of kind of progressing culture and progressing social normity, and I think he did a lot to move us in a positive direction. So thank you, Mr. Brooks. Also, don't be stupid, be a smarty. Come and join the Nazi party.
Wow. Wow. She just had to put that out there.
I did.
All right, so that wraps up our Mel Brooks Appreciation Day podcast. If you haven't had a chance yet to watch any of these 6 movies, Spaceballs, History of the World Part 1, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, Robin Hood Men in Tights, or what was your other one?
You already said Blazing Saddle.
Well, I thought you said
Producers?
Producers. That was the other one.
Yeah.
Producers. Go do it. Go rent them. Go find them somewhere and just sit down and watch them. It doesn't matter what order you watch them in. Just watch them. You're going to have a new appreciation for who Mel is, what he did over the last 50 years in comedy, and I guarantee you will have an appreciation for what movies do now. Another big thank you to everybody that wanted their shout out but did not know that they were going to have an augmented description going along with it. So
don't sue us.
Yeah, don't sue us. Everybody definitely a listen to their I can't even read any of this stuff anymore. Take a listen to their podcast because it's going to be very different than what we said they were. Once again, they were the Friendship Podcast, the Loaded Dice Radio Podcast, Lost Skills Podcast, Single Simulcast Podcast, the Dream Team, E as a 3, Dr. 3 a.m., Sin and Solace, 20 Minutes, Dropping Loads, Back Issues, Comic Book Podcast, the Talking Geek Podcast, the Sports Den, Parent Entrepreneur Podcast, Parent Entrepreneur Power, Social Strategy, and No Town Saints. I wanted to say them one more time so that way they didn't come back and go, what are you doing?
Listeners, if you thought our description sounded dumb, then you should check them out because it's the opposite of what we said.
It's totally the opposite.
So they're cool.
Yes. So take a listen to them. Laura, thank you so much for sitting in with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It was a lot of fun. Tony, thank you, my friend.
It's good to be.